Dead man walking. Only days out of jail, Nicky Scarfo was already plotting his next kill. And this time, instead of Salvie Testa doing the killing, he would be the one getting killed. Prior to this, Philip Leonetti had been Nicky Scarfo's prized pupil and had never seriously questioned his uncle's leadership. He was, in many respects, the perfect soldier, the perfect protege. But by putting a hit out on Salvie Testa, little Nicky had gone too far, even for Crazy Phil. Nicky Scarfo's increasingly erratic behavior had shaken Philip's faith in his uncle, and his blind allegiance to La Cosa Nostra, to the core, turning his world upside down. For the first time in his life, Philip was seriously reconsidering his path in life. Being his uncle's protege had worn him down, both physically and emotionally, and he didn't know how much more he could take. My uncle went crazy with the power when he became the boss. It was like he got drunk off of it. He became so full of jealousy and hatred that he had turned into something out of a horror movie. This wasn't a thing of honor or respect anymore. It wasn't even about the money. It was all about the power. Bodies were falling everywhere. He wanted to murder everyone and everything around him. It wasn't enough for us to kill our enemies. We were now going to start killing our friends. He used to say, the only way to hold on to the power is to kill anyone who stands in your way. That's the kind of mentality he had on everything. He was just looking for excuses to kill guys. And the more power he got, the crazier and more paranoid he became. My mother used to call him Adolf behind his back. That's how bad it was. He would get angry and tell a whole group of guys, "Don't fucking test me, 'cause I'll bring in a squad of guys from New York and wipe everybody in this room right off the fucking map. I won't leave none of you guys standing." He's talking about killing our whole family. And these guys knew he'd do it. And guess what? He would have. I didn't understand it. Before, we were only killing bad people. Now, we're killing everybody. It didn't make sense. Now we're going to kill Salvie? He was one of us. He loved my uncle. He believed in this thing, La Cosa Nostra. He killed for it, and he almost died for it. Salvie looked up to my uncle as almost a second father. Right before Phil Testa died, we were having dinner, and he turned to my uncle. I'll never forget it. He said, "Nick, if God forbid something were to happen to me, please be sure and always take care of Salvie." And my uncle said, "God forbid that would happen. I would treat him as one of my own." That kept replaying over and over in my head when he said that he would treat Salvie as one of his own. And now, he's going to have him killed. Who was going to be next? Me? Several factors contributed to the animosity that Nicky Scarfo felt towards Salvie Testa in those early months of 1984. Salvie Testa had ruffled Scarfo's feathers when he became engaged to Chucky Merlino's daughter. Despite the fact that both Testa and Merlino were like family to him, the increasingly paranoid mob dictator saw it as a power play by either Testa or Merlino, or perhaps both, and became obsessed with stopping the marriage. Salvie Testa's stock had been on the rise in the underworld since he personally avenged the death of his father by murdering two of the men responsible in such sensational fashion. Testa was, in a lot of ways, like a younger version of Scarfo himself. He had developed a loyal crew of killers with the young executioners, and he enjoyed an almost rabid rock star-type following among many in the Philly underworld. All of this made Scarfo see Testa as a potential threat to his power, and this paranoia would ultimately lead to Testa's brutal downfall. The tipping point in Scarfo's betrayal of Salvie Testa came in April 1984, after an article in the Wall Street Journal referred to the ruggedly handsome and charismatic Testa as the fastest rising mobster in the United States. When Testa got cold feet and broke off the engagement to Merlino's daughter, the always plotting Scarfo saw an opportunity to manipulate the situation and turn his inner circle, and ultimately the rest of the family, against Testa for disrespecting the daughter of the underboss. Both Chucky and Salvie loved my uncle. They were both loyal. They would have never gone against him. But he had it in his head that Salvie marrying Chucky's daughter meant they were teaming up to eventually challenge him. So when things started to go south with Salvie and Chucky's daughter, My uncle used it to play both sides against each other and turn Chucky against Salvie, which he can then use to get Chucky to back his plan and help him kill Salvie. What a lot of people didn't know was that right before Salvie broke off the engagement, Salvie talked to my uncle on the phone when he was in prison, and he basically asked my uncle for permission to end it with Chucky's daughter. Salvie was trying to do the right thing. He wasn't trying to disrespect Chucky or his daughter. They were both young. It didn't work out. That's all it was. Now my uncle's telling him from jail, "You don't gotta marry her. You should do what you want. Spread yourself around. Don't worry, when I come home, I'll talk to Chucky. He'll understand." At the same time, he's in Chucky's ear, telling him what Salvie was doing had dishonored his daughter, was a slap in his face, and that he shouldn't stand for that kind of disrespect to his daughter and his family. This cocksucker was stirring the pot. He wanted Salvie to think he was okay with it. Meanwhile, he was getting Chucky all worked up about it. My uncle started to say things about Salvie like, "This kid is getting too big for his britches," or "This kid's acting like he wants to be the boss. We'll see about that." Or he would say, "This kid is full of treason," or "This kid's fooling with drugs," or "These ciggies are always up to something." And all of it was nonsense. I remember that whole summer Salvie was on edge. He knew that something was up. He just didn't know what it was. And here I am, one of his best friends, and there was nothing I could do to help him. I wish I could have saved him, but I couldn't. By the summer of 1984, Nicky Scarfo's plan had worked. Not only was Chucky Merlino backing his play, he was supervising the plot. At one point, Nicky Crow and Charlie White had the contract, but they couldn't get it done. Then Faffy and Tommy Del Giorno had it, but they couldn't get it done either. Salvie's antenna was up, and even though he was a lot younger than all of those guys, he knew the street 100 times better. He wasn't going to be an easy mark. Killing the leader of the young executioner's crew wouldn't be easy. Attempted hits were set up to kill Testa at various locations, including a South Philadelphia health club where he worked out, a beauty salon he owned, mobster Faffy Iannarella's house where a baby shower had been scheduled, a mob gathering at Tommy Del Giorno's condominium on the Ocean City Boardwalk, aboard Salvie's boat, which was docked in Ventnor, and an exit ramp in Northfield coming off of the Garden State Parkway. But all of the plans failed. The setting of the next plot to kill Salvie Testa showed just how far the Scarfo mob had deteriorated. Joe Punge was Salvie's best friend. Joe Punge had a brother, Anthony, who was with us. They were part of Salvie's crew. Their father, Old Man Pungitori, who we called the Blonde Babe, was a made guy and had been around since Ange was boss. The Blonde Babe's sister died, Joe Punge's aunt, and the whole family was going to the wake, which was in South Philadelphia, to pay their respects. My uncle was very big on this. Nobody ever missed a wake. Chucky had gotten involved in the planning of Salvie's murder and decided he wanted to bang him right there in the funeral parlor at the wake, and then he wanted Tori Scafidi, who hung around his son Joey, to do the shooting. And guess what? My uncle loves the idea. This is how crazy we had gotten. We're going to shoot a guy inside a funeral parlor during a wake for an old lady. Are you kidding me? That's honorable? That's respectful? So what happens is the night before Tori got into a fight at a bar, and he got pinched. When my uncle finds out about it, he went nuts. He said, "These fucking kids, you can't count on them for nothing." But, as in the Hollywood gangster film life that life in the Scarfo mob had come to resemble, the show must go on. So Chucky assigns the killing to Charlie White, and he tells Charlie White to bring a .38 to the funeral parlor, which he did. The plan was to shoot Salvie inside the bar area. This funeral parlor had a little lounge, and there was a small bar that was separate from the room where the body was. But when we were there, the place was packed. You couldn't even move. We were all at the bar. Me, my uncle, Chucky, Lawrence. Salvie was 10 feet away from us. My uncle told Chucky, "Call it off. This place is no good." And Chucky made eye contact with Charlie White, who was across the room waiting for the signal. And Chucky shook his head no, and Charlie White just disappeared into the crowd. So now it's time to leave, and they have a receiving line outside for the Pungitori family, and we all go through it together, one at a time, the whole mob. As we are going through the line, the guys are gathering near our car so that they can greet my uncle and Chucky, the boss and the underboss, as a sign of respect. Me, my uncle, Chucky, and Lawrence were the last 4 guys in the line. It was Lawrence, Chucky, then my uncle, then me. I was always in front of, next to, or behind my uncle. We never deviated from that. I was his eyes, making sure no one was sneaking up on him. So we are going through the line of our guys, and everyone is there lined up, the whole mob. Faffy, Tommy Dell, the Narducci brothers, Nicky Crow, Charlie White, the Milano brothers, the Grand brothers, Joe Lagambi. Even the Pungitoris left their receiving line to come over and pay their respects. All the other guys were there, and all the way at the end of this line was Salvie. He was standing right next to the limousine we drove up in. So we are going through the line, and we are hugging and kissing everyone. And we are now coming up to Salvie. And when Chucky goes in to kiss him, he grabs both of Salvie's cheeks and kisses him square on the lips for like 10 seconds, and then pulls away and is looking at him with a crazy look in his eye. Salvie looked stunned, and all the guys around, their mouths were hanging wide open. It was the kiss of death. Salvie knew after that my uncle was going to kill him. There was no more doubt about it. Scarfo decided it was time to up the ante, and he called for another meeting with Tommy Del Giorno to discuss a revised plan to murder Salvie Testa. My uncle tells Tommy, "Give the order to Joe Punge." Now Joe Punge was Salvie's best friend. He was his right-hand man. They were together every day since they were kids. The whole time this is going on, nobody in Salvie's crew knew we were going to kill him. They knew there was some tension, but no one knew exactly what was going on. A few days later, Tommy Dell comes back and he says to my uncle, "Joe Punge said he'd do it, but he doesn't want to pull the trigger." My uncle laughed and said, "What's the fucking difference?" The plot to murder Salvie Testa had become more sinister by enlisting Joseph Joe Punge Pungitori, Testa's best friend, to lure him into what was to be a death trap. Joe Punge knows the rules. If he tells Salvie, or he drags his feet, my uncle will kill him, his brother, and his father, because they are all connected to La Cosa Nostra. Pungitori enlisted 2 other members of the young executioner's crew to carry out the killing of their friend and leader. Joe Punge brought Wayne and Joey Grand in on the plot, and he set up a meeting at a candy store on Passyunk Avenue in South Philly. And when he and Salvie arrived, Wayne pulled out a gun and shot Salvie in the back of his head. I heard that Wayne then stood over him and shot him again to make sure he was dead. He was. Hours later, another crew of bloodthirsty Scarfo mobsters would go to the candy shop and retrieve Testa's corpse, which was then loaded into a van and dumped on the side of a trash-strewn road in a wooded area just outside of Washington Township, New Jersey, a 20-minute ride from South Philadelphia. Later that night, Nicky Scarfo hosted a mob feast at an Italian restaurant in South Philadelphia, where members of the gang toasted Testa's murder. Scarfo also introduced his gang to the 2 Mexican pistoleros, who had watched his back in El Paso, after he had Leonetti fly the 2 men up for the celebration. I hadn't seen my uncle that happy since we killed Vincent Falcone. The whole thing made me sick to my stomach. The following day, September 15th, 1984, authorities found the body of the fastest rising mobster in the United States, hog-tied and in a ditch off of Sicklerville Road in Camden County, about 50 yards from the Atlantic City Expressway. Testa's tennis whites, the clothes that he was wearing at the time of his execution, had been so badly stained by blood that they had turned a crimson red. It was a macabre scene and told you everything you needed to know about life in the Scarfo mob. Nobody was safe.